Good morning, grade 7. How are you today? Okay, before we start our class, kindly pick all those papers under your chair and arrange your chair properly. Is anyone absent today? None?
No.
Very good, that's great. So next, Alexa, would you like to lead the prayer?
Yes, ma'am. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Again, good morning everyone and welcome to Science 7 class. Are you ready to learn grade 7?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright. So, super active naman talaga ng mga estudyante ko. Ayan. So, before we proceed to our topic, are you familiar with the scientist? Or do you know what is scientist? Yes, Benedict.
They are the one who discover and study a lot of things using science, ma'am.
Okay, so they are the one who study a lot of things and a lot of distribution to science we have today. Okay, so very good, Benedict. So what are the things we usually saw in laboratory that the scientists use always? That's the clue. So can you give me one example? Yes, Pablo.
A lab table,
Yes. What else, Mika?
different chart,
Very good. How about you, Leia?
a microscope.
All right, a microscope. So, do you know why scientists use microscope? Yes, Ella.
For them to see small things, ma'am.
Of course, because there's a lot of things that we cannot see through our naked eyes. So, when we say naked eyes, we cannot see it by just looking at it. So, for example, is the virus. Can you see the coronavirus?
No.
The COVID-19, can you see it? Michael, can you see it?
No po.
No. How about the bacteria, Clara? Can you see it?
No, ma'am.
No. So, we cannot see it through our naked eye. So, we always use, or scientists use the microscope to see those microorganisms or those small things. So now, because we already know that, or on our past lesson, we already talked about the scientists who contribution and their contribution to the creation of microscope. Now, we're going to talk about the parts and the function of a microscope. So, are you ready to learn?
Yes. Microscope. So now we're going to talk about the microscope. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to label the different parts of the microscope and their functions.
Okay, first, what is microscope? Angela, kindly read.
Microscope is an instrument used to see objects that are too small for our naked eye.
Very good. So microscope is the one we use to see microorganism or small things that we will never see by just seeing or by just using our eyes. Okay, very good. So next, what is microscopy? Yes, Jake, kindly read.
It is the science of investigating small objects using such instrument
Okay,
called
very good. So
microscopy.
it is the process of investigating using microscope. Okay, next, what is microscopic? Yes, Ella.
Since visible to the eyes unless aided by a microscope.
Very good. So it is the object that uses microscope for us to see it or to see those small objects or the microorganisms.
So we have two kinds of light microscopes. So we have the simple and compound. When we say simple, it is only uses one single lens, while compound has two or more lenses. This is one example of simple microscope. So that is the magnifying glass, which use only one lens for us to see the small object. While for compound microscope, we use this kind of microscope for the laboratories, for science experiment, and for the scientists to see small things also. We have three parts for compound microscope. So we have the mechanical parts, magnifying parts, illuminating parts. So for mechanical part, it is for adjustment and support of the microscope, while magnifying parts is for the enlargement of the specimen, while the illuminating part is to provide the light for us to see the clear version or vision of the microorganisms that we are looking for the microscope. So these three parts is very important for the microscope to function it very well.
Let's talk about the parts and function of the microscope.
Kindly read, Ella.
Mechanical parts: base, pillar, inclination joint. Base, bottommost portion that support the entire lower microscope. Pillar, part above the base that supports the other part. Inclination joint, allow for tilting of the microscope for convenience of the user.
Look at the picture. That's the inclination joint, pillar, and the base. They are important for microscope to be more stable when you are putting it on the table. It also supports the weight of the microscope.
Kindly read, Jake.
Mechanical parts: arm, neck, stage clip. Arm or neck, curved slanted part which is held while carrying the microscope. Stage, platform when an object to be examined is placed. Stage clip, secure the specimen to the stage.
Very good. Next, Jana. Kindly read. Stage opening, body tube, draw tube. Body tube attached to the arm and bear the lenses. Draw tube, cylindrical structure on top of the body tube that hold the ocular lenses. Thank you po.
Look at the picture. That's the body tube, draw tube, stage, and the net. They are the one who support also the microscope, the mechanical parts.
And we're done for the mechanical parts. Now, let's talk about the magnifying parts. So first, we have the ocular eyepiece. So it's another sense of lens found on the top of the body tube which function to further magnify the image produced by the object lenses. It is usually ranged from 5 times to 15 times bigger and better view of the microorganism. So eyepiece is very important to the microscope because this is the one who magnifies or to make the microorganism bigger. Aside from lenses, objectives is very important to the microscope. So we have three types of objectives. We have the low power, high power, and the oil immersion power. So low power objectives give 10 times bigger view of the object, while the higher power objectives is about 40 times to 43 times bigger the microorganism. And while the oil immersion objectives give us the highest magnification, which is 97 times or even 100 times uses or more bigger than the microorganism. And we usually use here the cedarwood oil or synthetic oil to see the microorganisms. So we usually use the high power objectives in our laboratory. Then ma'am, why we always use the high power and low power only in the laboratory? Why we're not going to use oil immersion objective for us to see more clearer version of our the microorganism? First of all, oil immersion objective usually used to detect the bigger or the viruses, the bacteria around us. But and they use it also, or the scientists use it also to make their study better. While we are in school, we're not going to use that as a just for the viruses or bacteria. We use is to see the nucleus and some parts of the blood. So that's the example of it.
Look at the picture. It is the eyepiece and the objectives. They are the very important part of the microscope.
Illuminating parts, mirror, and electric lamp. So mirror located beneath the stage and has concave plane surface to gather and direct light in order to illuminate the object. Electric lamp, a built-in illuminator beneath the stage that may be used if the sunlight is not preferred or it's not available. So they are the important also part of the microscope for us to be clearer and better vision of the microorganism we inspect.
Look at the picture. That's the mirror and the light. We cannot see our specimen without the light. So microscope is supported by light also. We cannot see the specimen if there is no light. And that's why mirror and the light is very important.
And for the final, so here are the parts of our microscope. So we have the body tube, nose piece, objective lenses, stage clip, diaphragm, illuminator, eyepiece, arm, stage, coarse adjustment, fine adjustment, and the base. So they are the parts of the microscope. Now, before I end my discussion, caring for the microscope. This is the very important part of carrying a microscope. Number one, do not let any liquid to come in contact with the microscope. Number two, always store the microscope inside the box after use. And number three, return the objective lenses onto the low power after use. Four, carry the microscope by the arm. And last, number five, use a cloth clean tissue to wipe the lenses. So why we need to properly care for the microscope? Number one, microscope is very expensive. Number two, for we can belong or to become long life, or we can still use it for the long time. And number three, for us to see more objectives or more organisms that we're going to study. Remember that this is kind of sensitive also. Microscope is very sensitive machine for the laboratory because it always used. Okay? So for that, I want you to answer the activity sheets given to you.
To sum up our discussion, so can we review some of the topics? Okay, so always remember that microscope is very important to our life or to the scientists or for us. Why? Because scientists use that microscope to discover something very important or very productive for us humans. So microscope help us to see the microorganisms that we cannot see through our naked eye. So always remember that this microscope help us nowadays to survive this pandemic. So this pandemic, which is the COVID-19 pandemic, was be solutioned or napagtagumpayan na gawan ng vaccine because of the use of microscope. Under the microscope, you can see the coronavirus. So because of the scientists supported or invented the vaccines that we have now, we already have the different kinds of vaccines. So we have the Sinovac, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, and many more vaccines that that help us today as we encounter this pandemic. Okay, so now before we end the discussion, I want you to bring out your ballpen and your paper and answer the activity sheet given to you. So is there any question from you?
None.
Yes, Ella? Do you have question?
Wala po.
Jake, do you have
No,
question?
ma'am.
Okay, so no question and I hope na naintindihan nyo ang ating discussion for today. So ayan, you have 15 minutes to answer the activity sheets and we will check it. And for additional information, you can also watch the YouTube link here. You can just get this link and type it in your typing board. So for the additional information or for more realistic experience with the microscope. And again, thank you for listening to our discussion.